Welcome to Be On A Thought, and welcome to the first interview for a series of interviews to come. Justin Rhys Grant is an actor, writer, and director. He graduated from the Victorian College of the Arts in 2018 with a Masters in Film and Television. He spoke at the Invasion Day protest in January and the Black Lives Matter rally here in Melbourne, Australia in June. Right now though, Justin is setting up his production company called Witchenini Entertainment. He will tell you further about it at the end of the interview. What I am hoping to achieve from Justin is just to hear his stories and understand just a little bit more about what it's like being an Indigenous Australian. So yeah, Justin, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you making the time to have this chat. It means a lot. I guess the first question would be, what's your mob? What mob are you from?
My mob, my tribe is warlpiri, Gurindji, and Djauan. So warlpiri is in the Central Desert. Gurindji is on the borderline of WA and Northern Territory. And Katherine is Djauan, is my hometown as well. Yeah, so those are my three tribes, and I'm also English.
I guess with that sort of brings me into another question. Like, have you ever had sort of an identity crisis with having an English background?
Having an English background, yeah, I have. Like, a lot of the identity crisis came from, looking at, moving down to Melbourne and people questioning, putting cultural things on me that I didn't feel comfortable with. Because what a lot of people don't understand is I'm from the Northern Territory. And coming down here, I can't do ceremonies, do traditional dances on somebody else's country. It's against our law and our culture. And people don't understand that, and they were asking me this, and it was very hard for me to face this culture. Like, I don't know, it was a big crisis for me. So I ended up going to my uncle, who was English, and asking him, I'm struggling with my cultural identity, and what do I do? And he's awesome. Like, he knew how I grew up, and he's English as well, so he taught me how to adapt to the world down here. And he said to me, let me tell you a story. It's about your grandmother and your grandfather. Now, one day they were having a fight, and when they had this fight, they were going on, and they were like, oh, this fight happened with him, and they don't know what it was about really, or how it started. But it got to the point where my grandfather, who was English, asked my grandmother, who was Aboriginal and, has brown skin, what are you? What are you? Are you white or are you black? What are you? What are you trying to be? Are you white or are you black? And she turned around and said, I just want to be me. And that was the end of the argument. And I thought, from that, it just kind of settled my identity crisis. Because it's like, for me, it was just like, it doesn't matter. Like, people always see me as Aboriginal and all of this, but, I just want to be me. And kind of helped me out through a lot of my life.
Yeah, wow. That really brings me into another question, which is, do you feel like you're representing your culture in everything you do, or you're always representing your culture no matter what you do?
Like, does it feel like does it feel like a burden when it comes to people asking me, about my culture, and does it feel like a burden when, like, I, put in a situation where I have to represent culture? It does, in today's society. It's, I think one of the things is you just can't, I can't, like, for me, what helps me with facing this world with, putting that pressure on me, I knew I had to face this because I was going to get a lot of people asking me questions, and a lot of Aboriginal people saying, well, now that you're a filmmaker, now that you're a director, you're going to have to, represent, you're our voice now, you got this responsibility, And like when it comes down to is like when you do stuff, you do it for yourself, When you want to follow your passion, you do it for yourself. So at that moment, you're not really thinking about how you're going to be seen, because you just, But then people just kept coming to me like that and was like, you're going to have to speak on behalf of our people now. You have responsibility. And I was scared because I felt, is it my place to stand? And is it my place to actually say about Aboriginal culture, And what it comes down to is the only way to ease my mind was to go, okay, I will not speak on behalf of an entire country. I made a stance right there that I am not going to speak on behalf of other people's country. It's not my role. It's not my, I'm disrespecting other people's cultures, Aboriginal cultures, by standing here and trying to speak on their behalf. But what I can do in my empowered state is to speak on the behalf of my family, my situation, where I grew up. And where I grew up is warlpiri. Where I grew up is Katherine in Djauan. What I grew up is learning that part. Now, and with me speaking from that, I'm also wanting to educate white people that Aboriginal culture is not, can't be generalized. You cannot put people in that, like, stop putting Aboriginal people in that situation where they feel like they have to speak on behalf of the entire country. It's like me saying to, a white person, what is, tell me, what's your stance on the English heritage, Tell me about England, and tell me about, what's your thought on being English? Mm-hmm. Can they speak on behalf of the entire fucking country? Mm-hmm. That's what situation they put us in. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. And yeah, but yes, I believe, like, as an Aboriginal man, I have obligation to my culture to tell stories. I have an obligation to the younger generation to teach and learn. So when I stand there and I'm speaking about my land, my culture, everything, I think I have an obligation to teach people. And yeah, on that, me being an actor, a director, a writer, a business owner, like me saying that, I have an obligation to teach and educate the younger generation. We gotta also understand, as Aboriginal people, no matter what role or position you're in, is that we have that obligation to teach and educate the younger generation and the generation of people coming up that want to learn our culture. We have a responsibility to teach them, because we are privileged to be able to allow our get out there, because we can't sit back and think that poor me, they want to ask me questions, poor me. What that is disrespectful, I feel, to our ancestors that gave us the voice that we're allowed to speak now, because they didn't have that voice. They didn't have that cultural thing that they could say, because it was beaten, it was taken away from them, and because of what they fought through and the heartache that they did, you're able today to speak on behalf of Aboriginal culture and teach and educate people in order to move forward. And yeah, so it's one thing you gotta, I think one of the things that Aboriginal people all around the world need to understand is it's a fucking privilege. It's a big privilege to be able to voice your culture, period. So if you got a voice and you got a stance, it's only because of your ancestors. Don't dishonor them by not speaking.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, because of everything they've gone through to get you where you are now. Yeah. Sorry about that. I had Australia Post in the background. Well, you answered that question, so my housemate got the package, but I can edit around that. That's fine. And well, I guess brings me another question is, where do you think the stereotypes about Aboriginal people come from?
The stereotypes of Aboriginal people come from, it does. It comes, well, a lot of it comes from the media, and a lot of it comes from a lack of understanding. You know, if you go into any poverty situation where you're looking at it from the other, you know, like you're an outsider, you go over to Brazil or something, and you look over at the slums there and you know, what they're going through, and you make a judgment on them, you know. But when you really sit down with them and you understand that the reason why that they don't get any government funding like Australia does, they have to work every single day, and sometimes it's hard to get jobs. And, you know, when you sit down with somebody and you understand what they're going through and how they got to that point, then yeah, it's easy to make, you know, judgment on other people, you know.
Pretty much summed it out. Like, would you say it's a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding, or?
Yeah, it's a lack of knowledge. And yeah, confronting when you're confronted, you know, when you grew up in a certain way, it's confronting to actually step out of your comfort zone and understand what we are. And we get that, we respect that. Don't judge people on that. Just, yeah, I think they're coming from a point of hurt and shame, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're ashamed of their past, and they're ashamed of, just because they're ashamed of their past, they don't want to, I don't know, it's kind of like a colonized mindset, you know, which is, what is it? Understanding the fact that when colonization happened, all the white fellas were slaves and traders. So when they came over to Australia, they first of all sent the convicts. This is how colonization happened. They sent the convicts and they sent them over to ban them or outcast them, you know, for punishment. And when they landed in Australia, all these criminals and all that, most of them were taken in. Some of them died from the harsh conditions, but most of them were taken in from Aboriginal people, and they learned the language, they learned the culture, and then they learned all of these things. And then when finally the colonized mob came over, Captain Cook or whatever his name is, or whoever it was, came over and they found these they found these criminals, and they said, "Oh, we will expunge your criminal record. We will take away and give you a title if you help us, and you will be able to go back to England with a clean record and a title, and you will get this if you turn on the Aboriginal people and help us defeat them." That is how colonization happened.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are taken away and given a title, they feel like, you know, that, what is the, sorry.
No, you're
It's
right.
like having an entitlement,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
They've been given an entitlement. And the fear of go of that is the fear of struggling again.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think there's a lot of psychological points that comes from. We always talk, like Aboriginal people, we talk about like our past trauma and how it affects our younger generation, and how it's affects us. You know, how the trauma of society in the past ripples within our children. It also happens with any other culture as well. Even the white fellas, even the English people, their trauma and their guilt and their trauma is, you know, the hierarchy, the system base in England, like the poverty in England. You know, to be given a title in England was a big thing back in the day, because kids, orphans, and all of that were treated as the lowest of the low. They couldn't steal, prison. They were getting killed off, sold as slaves. Like, they were one of the first slaves, the orphan kids in England. You know, and that struggle and that trauma, it was ingrained. And in order for you to move forward, you got to understand your past and where you come from. You know, and that's why I say, you know, that I understand white fellas in that sense because of their trauma and their pain. And I understand that all of that was very, it was a hard situation at that time, because if you were all of a sudden going from England, from a very poverty background, and not given any, you know, going back and the choice, and then given a choice to either go back to your home where your family is, and where you grew up, and now you will be able to have money and a title for food and all of that. It's all great, but that, you know, that is where colonization was at that time. And people need to understand the past and the trauma of each culture. We are now in the state of moving forward. So in order to open up people's ears to thing, they got to stop saying this, you know, I'm Australia and I'm entitled to this. First of all, entitlement is bullshit. Throw that shit out the window. Throw the shit out the window about this privilege shit. Throw that out the window. Nobody's hurt is different to other people's hurt. Get that out of there. You want to create a connection, create a human connection to Aboriginal people. Grow together, learn together, fight together as humans, human beings. There's a saying that I have in my, that I was taught, is no matter what color skin, we all have the same heart and we all bleed the same. You know? So yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's really impactful. It's sort of like, you know, hurt's hurt. Doesn't really matter what kind. It's all the same. You know.
Yeah.
No, I really appreciate that. So I guess that sort of brings me in to another question, which is, you know, with connection, what are your thoughts on January 26th?
Oh yeah. All right.
Big one.
Pretty brief, really. Like, in order for us to really celebrate Australia Day, is I think we need to celebrate it as a whole. We need to celebrate people who are still here and our warriors. So I think changing it to Warrior Day would be a better suit. And it's not for worry about the white people, because that was kind of thing, but it's a warriors, the people who were on the front lines and died and still try to maintain their culture, because they tried and they fought for us to maintain our culture. We are still here today, and we're able to say that we are not conquered.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's my thoughts on 26, is that we are not conquered.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a day where it's opens up to white people and everyone in Australia to celebrate a day of the warriors standing their ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do that and you'll create a sense of connection,
you
know?
I sort of feel like this brings us to another sort of point. Do you think there's not enough Indigenous people within the media, within, like journalists, faces on television? Is it because a lot of white Australians don't know Aboriginal people, don't have a chance to connect with them or talk to them and understand them?
Well, those who are trying to connect are frightened.
Mm-hmm.
They're frightened of stepping boundaries. What can I say? What can't I say? Am I offending them? Fear of offending. I don't want to offend them. Am I? And like they're treading lightly, but that comes from the educational system, and knowing that Aboriginal culture wasn't taught in the schools, so their ignorance as from the system, because it looked like that. And yeah, so the more that people sit down with Aboriginal people and just talk to us, we're happy to share our culture. We're happy to our ways, but you gotta, so that's where in the media, people are frightened of Aboriginal people because they don't understand the cultures and they don't want to tread on their toes.
Mm-hmm.
And, getting Aboriginal people to speak in media can be easy. We got NITV, we're proving it,
Mm-hmm.
We're speaking on ABC, There's a fascinating, amazing world in Australia of Aboriginal people that we can show you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just fighting to get our voice out there.
Mm-hmm.
And the more as time goes by, we're breaking stereotypes by educating people.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we'll open up the doors to media and get them not to be frightened to sit down with us and listen to us.
Yeah. It's just to go on a little tangent, but like it's really interesting that you mentioned NITV. Is that the station you mentioned? Yeah, because I looking at what happened with Adam Goodes, years ago, you had every channel commenting on it and every channel talking about it, and you had Adam, they had him interviewing Adam, but like the one channel I really got the most out of was NITV, because there was Indigenous people talking about it. They were talking about what it's like being, having racist slurs thrown at you. You know what I mean? Where every other channel was like, oh, no, it's not racist. Oh, no, it's, it's okay to be. Yeah, it's all fine. But like NITV was like, this is what it's like. This is how it feels. This is what he's going through. So it was really interesting to see an actual perspective of someone that could connect. They were connecting with him, So
Exactly. And the way that other people should be able to connect is like, well, for starters, what was the comment? It was like monkey, wasn't it?
yeah. It was
That, yeah. It's like, well, hold on. How would you like if somebody bloody called you a monkey?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
You
totally.
gotta put other people's shoes. That's called bullying, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just it's the epitome of bullying. So the fact that people couldn't understand that, yeah. So it's very interesting. It's like of course it's race, but then the bottom line is it's bullying. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Which sort of it makes me jump to a later question, which is education. So do you think it starts with the education? Do you think it starts with us trying to, implement how New Zealand seems to be so far ahead with their culture? I'll just ask the question, I guess. Why is there so much more cultural recognition in New Zealand as opposed to Australia? Do you think we can get to their point of cultural acceptance? How do you see that we can get there?
Well, understanding our cultural protocols.
Yeah.
Our tribal ways, in order for people to break through. Like, for instance, like in New Zealand, they're set in their cultural ways, and people had to learn and adapt to that. So understanding our cultural ways, it goes to the basis of understanding men's business and women's business. Don't send a woman in there to try talk to Aboriginal people and talk to the Aboriginal men and ask them about, what changes would you like? What changes do you think? And then she'll come back and she'll be like, well, they're not speaking to me because they don't want changes and they don't know what to say. And she will make her own judgment and she'll go, these Aboriginal men, they don't understand. They're not voicing what they think. How can we listen when they're not speaking? And the reason why they're not fucking speaking is because in our culture, men, and a lot of our culture, men's business is men's business. Women's business is women's business. So when a woman comes in and tries to speak to a group of men, they're going to be shy. They're not going to talk. And they're not going to express what they need to say because they don't feel comfortable. Because when it comes to you're putting them in a point where they're like, you want me to speak, but you don't understand. Like, we can't speak to you. In tribes in WA, they're not even, after going through ceremony, they're not even allowed to look at the women.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
In the eye, and they often put their head down and speak. Sometimes they can't speak to them.
Yeah. That's the culture. So it's like, it's not up to us to decide how their culture should be, how their culture should work, because that's just how their culture is. And yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, you want to break it. You want to understand that. If you want to understand the culture, send women in with the other women.
Mm-hmm.
It's vice versa. If a man comes in and tries to talk to the women, they feel intimidated and they won't bloody, because it's not their culture either. They feel uncomfortable and they feel like they can not express themselves properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And send a woman in, send a man in those different forms. Get them to sit down around the fire. Send the women out to go hunting with the women. Send the men out to go hunting with the men. Understand the culture, the ways of life, the way that thing. And then from there, you'll be able to build.
Mm-hmm. So So I was just going to say, do you think that's also a thing with education? Educating Australians about Indigenous culture. Do you think it's a thing of handing that over to Indigenous people and asking them how they can teach us the culture, or how we can put that into practice within schools and whatnot?
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of Australian people in the system, in news outlets and everywhere, in all organizations, is you can't go into, in order to work with people, you can't go, okay, how can we best serve you? they come across and they go, how can we best serve you? Well, basically what they're actually saying is, what they're consciously, unconsciously saying is, how can we get you to be a part of the system that we have built? We don't really want to hear all of you and what you represent and what your culture is. We just want to, we just want an easy pamphlet way, you know. We just need some dot points on how we can get you guys to be part of the system. That understand the system that you that they have built is crumbling. Is crumbling. It's a shit system. It's a system built on poverty, and it's a system that doesn't work with other cultures really. It's so you gotta break. You gotta be like, okay, how can we sit down with you, mom, and think? Sit down, go hunting, understand their cultural ways, apply that into the legal system, and that way you'll be able to move forward. Does that answer the question? I don't know.
Yeah. No, it does. It's sort of like, hang on a sec. It's sort of like you said, like asking Indigenous people, how can we implement you into our education? Is exactly like what you said. It's like, it's basically saying, you know, how can we make you work to our guidelines? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very interesting thing because
their own agendas.
Yeah,
100%. You know, I get out from this. You know, what can I get out from this? And that's the wrong way. I can't go in there and I say, you know, what can I get out of this? You know, because you're not listening to people. When
Yeah. So I guess it's, I mean, you could probably tell me more about that, but I guess it's like, you know, letting Indigenous people be completely in control of how they can teach their culture, rather than, you know, bringing them into the system, like letting them create their own system of how they can teach it. That's just my thoughts, I guess.
Exactly. Like, don't forget, we're open to adaptation.
Yeah.
Adapting culture with the current system. You know, open to that, but you got to let us do it our way.
Yeah. No, totally.
And,
like you said, it's like, all right, so you got 1 hour. You got 1 hour a day. Get as much as you can in 1 hour, and then we'll come back tomorrow. Yeah, it doesn't really work. Yeah.
When it comes to understanding Aboriginal culture, it takes minimum 2 months.
Yeah. Well.
2 months to understand that culture and that tribe. You need to sit down and you need to go through all the cultural protocol ways before you're even able to get the proper answers from the other. They will not give you that until you've gone through the cultural, respectful way.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
It takes some time. You can't sum it up in a day. You can't sum it up in a week. You can't sum it up in 2 weeks. Yeah. You need to sit down with them for at least a month or two, and you need to experience their culture.
Yeah.
And then once you the respect of the tribe, then that's where you'll get your answers from.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think all I got was a story about the rainbow serpent, and, you know, we watched Rabbit Proof Fence. I think I told you that. And that was my understanding of Aboriginal culture at school, you know. So it was very, very limited. What do you think we can do as a nation to understand and all of us get along? I mean, it's quite a broad question, but yeah, what's the best what we can do to sort of all get along and understand each other?
What do we think we can do as a nation?
Yeah, as a nation.
Well, like I said, you know, part of the burden of being Aboriginal is you get asked this question.
Mm.
a lot, and it's a big question.
It is. It is. I mean, that's the thing. Like, in your opinion, I guess, obviously you can't speak for everyone or your whole culture. Yeah.
I'll speak on what I think. I'll speak on my understanding of how we could. But like like I said, it's just my opinion. It doesn't. I'm not gonna speak on behalf of all of Australia on how to fix their problem.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
But I will tell you, like, my opinion. What do you think we can do as a nation to make up for the past? Stop thinking about the past.
Mm.
Stop thinking about the past. Stop saying get over it. Because would you say to people uh, who are, would you say to a woman who has raped, who has been sexually abused, would you tell her to get over it?
Not at all.
You
No.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
would
Exactly.
you would you tell somebody who has white, black, or whatever color you are? Would you tell somebody who has lost their kids, being ripped away from them? Would you tell them to get over it?
Mm-hmm.
Stop saying that shit. You wouldn't say that and you wouldn't put that on anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So don't stop saying it. Stop, just period. Stop saying get over it,
Mm-hmm.
and stop saying, yeah, we're here to make a new world. We're here to make a change. But first of all, you guys have an obligation to get over your traumas. Shoving that shit back in our face. Stop saying get over it. You're going to work with us. Come sit down. Dedicate your time to sitting down with people. People these days are too worried about fucking time frames. In our culture, we don't worry about time.
Mm.
You want to know, you want to sit down with us, you got to go through our protocols, and you need to sit down with us around the fire and talk properly.
Yeah. Talking about Adam Goods again, it's like, and yeah, as you said, you're an actor. Do you believe that sports star is quite a confrontational question, but I think
I know, really.
yeah. Do you believe that sports stars or actors shouldn't be political and should just stay in their job?
That is nyonyons to think like that. I know, right?
Yeah.
They say, would anybody put that on somebody else who wasn't Aboriginal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell an act to say to Hugh Jack, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
But I've told him that when it comes to him voicing about Aboriginal people. Oh, he's a political person, so he's copped that as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he copped that, and like for instance, this is what's terrible about the media. Like, did you know that just real quickly? Did you know that Usher came to Australia and spent time with Indigenous people out bush in
Usher.
Arnhem Land?
Usher.
Usher,
I did
yeah,
not know that. No, I did not know that.
yeah. He was painted up and he went out hunting with the Arnhem Land tribe.
Yeah, wow. Yeah,
Did you hear that on the media?
not at all. No.
Did you hear about Ed Sheeran making a stance with the Aboriginal flag?
Didn't hear that, no.
He
No.
was there, the Aboriginal flag on his shirt while doing a performance in Australia.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
When what is it? When what are those mob called again? Black Eyed Peas came over.
Yeah.
during their song "Where Is the Love," at the end of that, they bring up the Aboriginal flag and a handprint to show that we stand with Gurindji Walker, who was an Aboriginal boy who got shot by the police.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You don't hear that stuff on
I
the
didn't
news.
hear that either. No, didn't know that.
So you guys have been cheated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're being cheated.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that you're cheated right now in the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
These
interesting.
mob are cheating you from that knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I mean, it's quite. I don't want to say ironic, but like the fact that Black Eyed Peas are American, Ed Sheeran is British. You know, other than Hugh Jackman, I don't know what Hugh Jackman said, but it's like these two people, these two groups, so they're international. You know, they're not Australian, and they're being allies, I guess, to Aboriginal people. So it's it's quite empowering, and yeah, I guess it's that sort of thing, isn't it? It's like, do you say it's only that statement of you can't be political, just stay in your job role is generally referred when it's something controversial, as in being Indigenous and saying that Australia has a race problem?
Well, yeah. Do you think so?
It looked like it, yeah. Honestly, yeah. As as the journalist said on Channel 7, it's like, was it The Project? I think it might have been both. It's like Adam Goods just needs to put his head down and play sport. He needs to stop rubbing his culture in our faces. And it's like,
What?
yeah, during, I mean, this is just my perspective, but like it was during an Indigenous round of AFL that he did, a warrior dance. So how can he not, enjoy his culture during a cultural round of AFL, So,
But I think that comes down to them bloody, looking at them and seeing that cultural dance and then feeling ashamed of themselves. That's where that's coming from.
yeah.
It's like they're feeling ashamed of the traumas that their ancestors have done, and they feel guilty of what their ancestors have done. So stop rubbing, they're projecting their blame of their guilt and all of that shit onto him. He's just doing the thing. He's doing what his culture should be doing, is teaching Aboriginal people that you too can be a football player and dance.
Yeah.
He's just doing, like, he's coming at it from that stance. He has an obligation to his tribe and to his culture to teach the younger generation coming up that they too can be what they want to be. It doesn't matter what these other people are thinking. If they come in at it from, but when it comes, that's where he's probably coming from, and that's where all Aboriginal actors, directors, whatever it is in the limelight should be coming from, is that I'm here as a platform I'm here to be able to showcase that Aboriginal people are thing. And this is something that I want to pass down to the younger generation, because it's part of my culture, part of my tribe, to teach the younger generation.
Yeah.
But also to my elders as well. But when it comes to people criticizing people like that, they got to really stop and celebrate with us. If we're doing celebrating dance, that's us celebrating. We're introducing our culture to you. You need to look at us we're showing you a glimpse of our culture. We're showing you a glimpse. That's an amazing thing. Just accept it as an amazing thing. Don't live in shame and guilt.
Yeah.
As part of learning, we're trying to show you our culture. Just listen to us.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you just said celebration too, because the the fact that with like the haka in New Zealand, it's everyone in New Zealand celebrates the haka, and you know, everyone learns the haka no matter what, you know, color your skin is. And when you see it as the All Blacks doing the haka, it's like everyone's like, yeah, you know. So it's interesting that when, you know, an Indigenous Australian sports player does a warrior dance, it's not celebrated. It's not given the same treatment that the haka is given when you see it in sports stadiums. So yeah, anyway, I just found that so interesting that one's, you know, celebrated and the other's not, you know. But yeah. Is I mean, just quickly as well, is that something that can white Australians be involved in Aboriginal dance? Or is that just a cultural?
Well, you need to understand what the first of all, in order to say, okay, you know, of course there are interpretive dances that we can do, but like for people to come in and understand. But I reckon you need to understand the point of what dance means to us.
Mm-hmm.
And the point that dance means to us is dance tells a story and a ceremonial bond to the land.
Mm-hmm.
And when we dance to the land, we dance for the land, we dance for the spirits. We dance with the cultures, with the culture of the land, the feeling of the land, the traditions. It's a living moment dance. When we, and in order for people to come in and learn these dances, they need to first go through the cultural protocol of sitting down with Aboriginal people, because it takes time to earn respect in Aboriginal culture. And if people are worried about time, oh, it's too much time to sit down with them. It's like, you got to understand that time doesn't belong to you. Doesn't belong to anyone. You can't own time or control time. Just sit down with them and go through the cultural protocols, which I'll be teaching in the industry through my company.
Yeah. Bit of a plug. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess there's no way without discussing this, but it's like, have you ever received racism in Australia?
Yeah, of course. Of course I have. You know, for me to speak at this point with such a warm heart is me standing up as a warrior. But yeah, I've suffered racism. I've suffered systematic racism. I've suffered blatant racism. I've suffered, what do you call it? The racism that's kind of hidden, sort of.
Casual.
Not casual racism.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that, you know. But for me, I never really thought, you know, I'm funny. I'm funny in the sense that, like, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like, I look at things in a funny way sometimes when it comes to racism, because I don't know, it's just the way, like, for instance, I walked on a train, and when I first came down to Melbourne, and people were frightened of me, and they got up and moved seats, and because they didn't trust me or whatever, and they were frightened of me, and they moved down the train. And I thought to myself, you know, wow, these people are nice. They're giving me a place to sit down.
Yeah.
When, like, I walk into the stores and people used to follow me around, they'd be like, you know, looking over their shoulders and all of that, and they would come up and they would ask me, "Are you all right, sir?" You know, there was a way that I could just be like, you know, hey, yes, I'm all right. Of course, I'm all right. You know, I'm doing this thing, and like, how dare you, and attack them, you know, and all this. But I thought when these mob come over, you know, this is just how my mindset works.
Yeah.
They come over and they're like, "Are you all right, sir?" I'd be like, these motherfucking helpful. Yeah, I'm just having a look around here. Come show me something. You got anything good here? Look, show me around. You know?
For great customer service. That's what it's called, yeah.
Yeah. I say these people are really attentive. You know, they really look at how to, you know. Although it was funny for me to look at that like that growing up. But, you know, the more and more you understand about racism and you understand that the way that they were looking at you isn't what you thought it was. It was actually them targeting you and not trusting you. They didn't realize that later on. And, you know, and I always think back to those moments and think, you know what? I still like the way I handled it.
Yeah.
Because I could have been angry and I could have been thing, but I still like the way I handled it.
Yeah, I was about to say being oblivious. Yeah.
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 Well,
I mean,
everybody's an individual. And when I speak from my experience, I'm still really happy and glad about how I looked at it and coming at it as from an angry point of view. Because of me looking at it like that, I at that time I was just like, you know, I was oblivious, but because I was oblivious, I actually learned that was actually a cool way of expressing myself, you know. Like when people come to me with racism, I go, you know, I instantly think, you know, when they come at me and they go with racism, I'm like, you poor thing. It's all right, you know. Let me teach you about my culture. You poor little thing.
Yeah, wow.
You know?
Yeah.
Then I never think of them as higher up or bossing over me. I think them as little children, not knowing my culture.
That's a really good way to put it, because it's a power play. So just sort of reverse the power. Sort of, yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. Great. I mean, so just to end up, I guess, what's the one thing in your mind about your culture that others can't seem to understand?
One thing is, and this is like I was saying before, one of the big messages out there for white people and for black people is for black people, stop thinking that you have an obligation to speak on behalf of an entire country. That you shouldn't have to carry that weight on your shoulder. You shouldn't have to be thinking that it's your responsibility. You shouldn't have to. That's a heavy burden. Allow yourself to understand that you can only represent a certain tribe and a certain area. And through that, you will get the empowerment from your culture, and you'll be able to respectfully teach people about your culture and your land. And also, you won't. It's not excluding other indigenous cultures. Get that out of your head. Like, you gotta understand. Like, this is. I'm saying this for a message to the black fellas that it's disrespectful to speak on behalf of a culture that you don't understand. Okay, I can't claim, you know, the Wurundjeri tribe down here in Melbourne. I will never claim that tribe as thing, because these mob have their own cultural ways and I respect their cultural ways. You know, I will not speak on behalf of them because they have their own voice, their own experiences. And you can't expect to speak on you can't speak on their experiences. You can only speak on your experience. Go with power by speaking on your experience and where your culture and where your group and where your clan is from. Respectfully teach people this, because white fellas need to understand that we cannot speak on behalf of an entire country, because our borderlines are different, our traditions are different all over Australia. So for us to speak on behalf of our heritage and our Indigenous people, we need to respectfully respect the borders and the tradition of other people's culture. And we need to speak on behalf of our tribe in order to educate these people. Now, white people, what you guys need to do is stop asking Aboriginal people on how we can fix Australia. Because how would you like it if I said, how do we fix Europe? For fuck's sakes, it's a big country. Would you like to be given a responsibility on how to think? I will tell you how, from my experience, what I'm going through. But in order for me to, I would only voice what I would like to see in the world, you know? What I would like to see in the world is equality, period. Everybody knows that it's equality. The understanding that we all just are the same, under the same sky. We are the same people. You know, that's the big dream. Everybody knows that that's what we want. So stop asking Aboriginal people how to fix your situation. You know?
Yeah.
Stop. It's not our obligation to fix your situation.
Yeah.
It's up to you to make that change.
Yeah.
Don't put that on us. You want to learn, you need to sit down with Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. Don't put your journey to other people and expecting a quick fix. Because I tell you what, Aboriginal culture can't be summed up in a fucking pamphlet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want the easy way out. You want the quick response because you got a time frame. You want to learn about our culture, sit down with us people. Stop fucking throwing your, your journey onto us.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
You know?
Yeah. No, great. Awesome, man. I mean, I guess that sort of sums it up into like helping more Indigenous people get into, would you say higher job roles or higher opportunities?
Was whether the Aboriginal people want to do that in the first place. Because it's not of our culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if the Aboriginal individual wants to step into a role where they're a lawyer, where they want to be in, where they want to be a news journalist because they want to educate people, they want to do that, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Each individual is a journey, is in order to hold my culture, I got to tell stories. That's culture, and I can do that through media. I can show people my world through making movies, through creating websites, So, yeah, being a storyteller, that's part of my culture. And that's, that's every individual, and they have their own ways of how they want to do things.
Yeah, great, excellent. Yeah, true. Yeah, letting once again, like you said, letting them decide, letting Indigenous people decide for themselves. Yeah, great. All right, thanks so much, Justin. I really appreciate your time. Yeah, hey, yeah. Oh, whoa! Look at the time. Oh man, it's all gone. Yeah. I really appreciate you being here and telling me your stories. I don't. Time has not existed. What is time?
Time is what we make of it, and like,
yeah, that's a good way to, yeah, 100%. All right, buddy.
Yeah.
I'll let you get back to your day. And
thanks for sitting down with me and listening to me ramble on. But hopefully, I hope this gets out to a lot of people. And if people have questions about what I say, definitely let us know. And I'm up for it. I'm always up for conversations like this.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, when Corona's all over, I look forward to sitting next to you in person.
Yeah.
Stage one.
Before I leave, can I do a plug-in?
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it.
See. All right. Just a quick little plug-in. Witchenini Entertainment is the name of my company. I'm a writer, director, and producer. I create my own work. I also support artists in teaching, like taking footage and creating music video clips and little short films for Indigenous kids. And I'm a big supporter of getting Aboriginal Indigenous stories out there. And that's what Witchenini Entertainment does. We're having our first launch next Saturday. We're launching the company. It's going to be official. So exciting. On Saturday next week.
What's the date? What's the date on that?
October 2nd. Yeah.
All right. I better get this video out then. Yeah.
Cool. Well, check it out. Witchenini Entertainment. October 2nd, our launch. We're going to be sending it across to Screen Australia, all of that, to gather up as much support as we can.
Done. Awesome. Yeah? All right. Easy. Cheers, man. I appreciate it. I'll speak to you later.
Thanks, man. You too.
See you, dude.